When I look at my indreams profile, it tells me that I've played 77,000 dreams. Now that's a lot of dreams, and I thought it might be nice if I could pick out what I thought were the GOAT dreams amongst that lot. And that's not the little animal goat, that's the greatest of all time. And I thought I'd start with platformers. But I didn't want to just pick out one platformer and go, there's the greatest of all time platformers, because the genre itself is very varied and there is lots of different types of platforming games available. And it was really difficult to make a decision on one game anyway, so I thought I'd divide up the platforming section into subgenres. But then it became apparent that it was really difficult to do that, even because there are some games that would fit into multiple categories. But I've given it a good go. So here is my choices of platforming games in their different subgenres. And you'll probably disagree with quite a lot of my choices, but please leave in the comments what you would have picked. I'm really interested to know what games are popular in the Dreamverse. Our first category for platformers is the 2D platformers. Now there are many platformers in Dreams that regard themselves as 2D because they have fixed the movement of the character within a single axis. But in general, in Dreams, these platformers are 2.5D platformers in that they have a fixed axis, but they use 3D graphics. And as Dreams is essentially a 3D sculpting tool, most of the so-called 2D platformers are in fact 2.5D. There is a separate list for those, so if you don't see your favourite here, it might be that I've put it in the second category. 2D platformers then I've defined as sort of retro looking 8-bit style platformers. Sometimes they use very flat graphics, other times they have created like 3D effects with layers, parallax scrolling, and have not used the sculpting tool to create anything in their game, using sort of sprites and the paint tool to make their level come alive. For my runner-up for the 2D platformer GOAT, I have chosen Purgatory Panic. This was a demo made for Dreamscom by Surrounded. It hasn't come out as a full game yet. It does involve more than one axis, but it has a definite retro feel, and that is what this category is all about. I look forward to seeing the full game when it finally comes out. I've awarded my GOAT for 2D platformers to Cyber Trigger by Paulo Ramirez. Now this creator is an expert in the 8-bit retro look, and Cyber Trigger is his one full 2D platformer, and it's excellent. It is set on an alien planet, and there's also sections that are underwater, so it has a lot going for it. The sprites are excellent. What more can you say? So now we move on to the 2.5D platforming GOAT, and as I've explained before, 2.5D is where we have a fixed axis for the character to move in, but instead of it being flat and retro using sprites and paint, it uses the 3D sculpting tools, and the characters and the environments are quite often made to look solid and real. And this is a very popular genre in Dreams. There are a lot of 2.5D platformers, and they are all sorts of genres: fantasy, science fiction, and horror, and child-friendly games. It's everything that you can imagine can be made into a 2.5D platformer, and they do. You can see here some clips of some of my favourite 2.5D platformers. Not all of them are full games, some of them are demos, some of them were made for game jams and are quite short, but they're all pretty amazing. I eventually went for Symphony for my runner-up. This is a beautifully made game, lovely characters, great landscaping, and the whole premise of it with the world that is populated by musical instruments is really great. But for my winner, for my GOAT, I chose Temple of the Sun and Moon. And this looks like a straightforward platformer where you have to collect coins. But once you get through the level to start with and you pick up the ability to change from day to night, and everything changes. It is a really complex and interesting game, beautifully made, and really, really enjoyable, from the music to the graphics to the whole puzzling elements. So now we move on to, and you've probably guessed it, the 3D category for platformers. And there are lots of platformers in Dreams with this style. This is where they've used the sculpture tool to create solid 3D models, and they've allowed your character to have free movement in all axes. Now these can be open world adventures where you can move your character wherever you want to, or they might lead you down a certain pathway, but in all cases they allow you free movement around a whole world. And this is the differentiator in Dreams between this and Media Molecule's previous game, Little Big Planet, in which that was more of a fixed axis 2.5D experience. So there are lots to choose from the 3D platformer. It was a really difficult decision. You can see the clips here of some of my favourites. So let's see what I picked for my runner-up and for my GOAT. For my runner-up in the 3D platformer GOAT category, I have chosen Trip's Voyage by Youthflace and Actual Jimmy Jam. This is one of the newer games, and this was launched in January 2022 and is the most popular game of the year so far. It is an original game, but it has lots of homages to past 3D platformers in it. A very polished and professional looking game. For my GOAT, I have chosen Funky Bones 4. Now, there is no Funky Bones 1, 2 or 3 in Dreams, and those can be found in Little Big Planet. This is made by Loz R as a fourth sequel to a series of games that he made on that platform. And it is so beautiful. The lighting and everything is marvellous. The puzzles are complex and interesting, and it's just so beautifully made. It had to be my GOAT for this category. So now let's choose our GOAT from the marble platformer category. Now, I have defined a marble platformer as any rolling object down an obstacle course, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a marble, but the idea is these are physics-based obstacle courses where you run downhill, you go faster, etc. And there is a lot of these in the Dreamiverse, partly due to the fact that Media Molecule launched a kit for marble platforming right back at day one, and lots of people have remixed this marble to make their own platforming level, and a lot of these are incredibly difficult. I think that's the nature of a marble platformer, is to be complex and difficult to maneuver your marble through it. But the whole idea is to learn, die, repeat until you've mastered the course. And there's a lot of sense of achievement when you actually reach your target zone or portal or whatever it is at the end of the obstacle course. I've got a lot to choose from here. Here are a few of my favourites in clips. Your favourite might not be here because there's so many to choose from, so let me know in the comments if you have different choices for any of the categories that you've seen here in this video. Right, for my runner-up, I've chosen From a Mountain by Dream Tinder. This was 10th place in the Ancient Times Game Jam and uses the Ancient Times platforming kit to make their platformer, just proving that you don't need to be really amazing in asset creation in order to make something that really works and is fun to play. There are plenty of Dreamweaver's assets that you can use to make anything that you like. You don't have to be an amazing sculptor in your own right. So this is a really fun game, and really one of those games that makes you want to master it. Keep trying over and over until you get to the end. So for my goat, I've picked Full World Adventures Part 1 and Part 2 by XX Razorfist XX. They're two separate dreams. You'll have to search for both of them. A really, really professional, lovely looking marble platformer. I'll give you a sense of vertigo with all of these realistic looking wooden platforms that you have to roll down. It is the most popular marble platformer on Dreams with over 90,000 thumbs up. Nothing's going to come close to that now, so it is the world beating. But I've chosen it for my goat because I think it is a really great example of what a marble platformer can look like in Dreams. Sometimes it's not just quick reflexes that you need with a platformer, but a quick brain too. Puzzle platformers combine puzzle elements with platforming to make a more complex game. And there are a few puzzle platformers in this selection, and you may have seen a few puzzle platformers in the previous 3D and 2D, but here are a few clips of some of my favourite more complex and more puzzly end of the range. my puzzle platformer runner-up, I have chosen Kuro, A Shadow's Dream by Born and Able. This beautiful looking game set in a Japanese style landscape with a ninja called Kuro who has to navigate through platforming levels but with timed special powers. That makes this more puzzly than some platformers of a similar nature. It's a 2.5D platformer and it's really worth your while to play. For my goat in the puzzle platformer category, I've chosen Pip Gemwalker by Man Chicken Turtle and Freakers. 7 puzzle levels with Pip Gemwalker, which is a very cute looking sloth and an icon of character design for Dreams. What more can you say about this? They released this with a kit as well, so you can make your own Pip Gemwalker levels. It was nominated for Dream of the Year in 2019, but it was my game of the year, and I still think it stands up amongst some of the later games as well. It was one of the early games that really started to show what Dreams could possibly create. So now we'll move on to a category I'm calling simple shape platformers. Now these are the platformers that have pared everything down to just the basics of platforming gameplay. They've not got fancy graphics, they haven't got interesting intricate backgrounds or character models. They have just gone for very simple basic shapes. A lot of these games look at colour as an option and different presses of the controller to move your character through intricate and sometimes fast-paced platforming levels. And these are sort of games that you need to work on in order to get a really fast speed run, and a lot of these have got scoreboards and timers. For my runner-up for the goat, I have picked Just Pogo. This is by Hypno Fox, and it's a guy on a pogo stick, and that is basically it. You've got to get to the door. It's one of these games that you're either very good at or very, very bad, and as you can see from the clips, I am incredibly bad at this game and have not been particularly successful in getting through the levels. There are lots of levels to play. It's a really fun but incredibly pared down and simple game. For my goat in this category, I've chosen Beat Runner. This incorporates music and movement and colour, and it's a really demanding platforming game that allows speedrunners the chance to try and improve their scores, and each level is more devious as the game goes on. It's also a bit of a memory test where you have to remember what buttons to press for what type of jump that you need to do. It's like an endless runner, so you have to press the buttons in time, and it also puts it together with the music, so it gives you that's why it's called Beat Runner. Really excellent game, totally recommend it. Right, I'm going to confess this particular category was invented in order for me to give a goat to a particular dream. And this is really for all those platforming games that didn't really fit in the other categories comfortably, and I had to find somewhere to put them. So there's not as many dreams in this category as others. You might think that some of these fit better in puzzle platformers or adventure platformers or marble platformers even. But some of these, where to put them, it was a difficult decision. But here is a section of some of the more quirky end of the platforming genre. So for number 2, I pick Drop Ball 2 by Rooney Dan. There is a drop ball, but this was invented specifically for the One Special Day accessibility event. So the idea was like one-button games and things like that. And it's a really fun game to play. It's a sort of cross between a puzzle platformer, a marble platformer, and an arcade game. And for that reason, it's in this odd arcade platformer category. So here is the reason for this quirky arcade platformer category. My winner of the GOAT, it's Slice, Man Chicken Turtle, and 7 other people: Girl from Croydon, Amenjo1, I Bubeck, Ditar, Nolo Frank, OMG, it's Adrian, and Shandy Boy 1975, most of which are the musicians that made the soundtrack for this game, which is pretty excellent. This is a platforming game. It's also a combat game. It's also an adventure. It's also 2D. It's also retro. It's also all sorts of things. This is why it was really hard to categorize, and I felt I needed to give it a go, but I don't know which category to put it in, so I've created a category all for itself. If you haven't played it already, this was the top game for last year, 2021. Our final category, I've chosen adventure platformers. Now these are platforming games that are essentially normally puzzle platformers, but they have some sort of epic story behind them, some adventure elements, maybe a little bit of RPG elements into them, and but they aren't adventure RPGs, so to speak, so that they don't go into the adventure category. There's too much platforming for them to be just pure adventures, which is a video that I'll do for the GOATs for that type of game at a later date. But today we're looking at story-driven platformers with an epic story behind them, and these are the clips that I've chosen to represent that type of platforming game. For my runner-up, I've chosen Triangle is Sentient. This is a game from last year. This is by It's Me Juvie. It's a really surreal puzzle platformer, but it has like an epic feel to it. A really interesting look. Everything is a little bit strange with all this white landscapes, and the character that you play is just a load of strange pyramids on top of a cone. It's a very strange game, but it's full, and it's got a lot of interesting puzzle elements in it too. So I've chosen that for my runner-up. My winner of the adventure platformer GOAT is Ascent Remastered by Payoff Wizard. Now, we've seen clips of Ascent. This was the remastered version, a complete reimagining really of the original game, and the quality of this visually is really impressive. You'll forget you're playing Dreams, and it has this wonderful epic adventure feel, as well as the platforming. There's combat, there's puzzling, it's got it all in there. And it was a difficult decision to make whether to leave this here in the platforming section or put it in adventures, but I've chosen to give its GOAT award in the platforming video. So if you think it's missing when I finally get round to doing all the adventure stuff, then it's because it's here and not there. It's a really great game. Not quite finished. This is just chapter 1, but it's quite a long play at 45 minutes to an hour and a half of gameplay. That's quite long for Dreams. So definitely worth a look. That was released this year. Thank you for watching my choice of the greatest of all time platformers on Dreams. Obviously there are games being made all the time, and there may be some Dreams that have launched recently that you think would have qualified, or I might have missed some and you disagree with my decisions and you would have chosen something else. Please let me know what you would have picked for each of these categories in the comments. Let's have a conversation about the best of Dreams. If you want to play any of these games, any of these clips, and any of my runners-up or winners, you can find a link to my GOAT Platformers collection. And please view this in the Dreamiverse and not through indreams. So you can go to indreams and use play later on the collection and then play the whole thing through indreams. It's because some of these games are not available on indreams. You only get the full collection within Dreams itself. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.